Let us now move on to the next sutram in the Ashtadhyayi, which is 3.1.134. We just studied Dvul Trichau. Let us now move on to 3.1.134, which is Nandigrahipachadibhyo Lyu Ninyachaha. It's a very important sutram. There are a number of words in the language which are derived by using this sutram. So please make a note of it. Nandigrahipachadibhyo Lyu Ninyachaha. Nandigrahipachadibhyo Lyu Ninyachaha. Lyu Ninyachaha. Okay, let us see what this sutram says. Of course, we know that we are in the dhatoh adhikaraha. We are also in the adhikara of krid ating. So we are expecting that Panini will prescribe. Is prescribing a krit pratyaya after a dhatu. So this is how it helps to know where you are in the Ashtadhyayi to understand these sutrani. Now we also know that by 3.4.67 Kartari Krit, that unless stated otherwise, these affixes are to be used in the sense of the agent of the action. In the sense of the agent of the action. Okay, so Lyu Ninyachaha. Lyu Ninyachaha. Now in this sutram, what we have is that we have this compound. Nandigrahipachadibhyo Lyu Ninyachaha. Now Nandigrahipachadibhya, there is a pratipadikam inside is Nandigrahipachadi. This is a compound. We have not studied compounds yet, but we need to understand a little bit of what that means. So what is there is that there is a group of three terms: Nandi, Grahi and Pach. Nandi, Grahi, Pach. And that's what's called as a Dvandva Samasa. Dvandva means A plus B plus C. So Nandi, Grahi, Nandi plus Grahi plus Pach. Nandi, Grahi, Pach. And then we form a Bahuvri compound. Again, all these terms are not known to us yet, but when we study compounds, we can come back to this and appreciate exactly what it means. So this is a Bahuvri compound. A Bahuvri compound is that when you form a compound to refer to a term or a word which is outside the compound. Outside the compound. For example, Pitambaraha Vishnuhu. Pitambaraha is one who has a yellow cloth. The compound is only yellow cloth, but one who has a yellow cloth is Pitambaraha. Like Mahabahu, one who has strong arms. So when the entire compound is standing for a term which is outside the compound, it's basically you're taking a compound and making it an adjective to another word. So you say Pitambaraha, it stands for Vishnu. It stands Mahabahu, stands for Arjunaha, and so on and so forth. So here what we have is that we create a Bahuvri compound now, which adding this word Adi. Adi means beginning. So the entire compound now becomes Nandigrahi Pach Adi Yesham Te Nandigrahipachadayaha. So Nandigrahipachadayaha are those terms, those groups of terms which begin with Nandi, Grahi and Pach. So here we have three groups. We have the Nandyadi Ganaha, we have the Grahyadi Ganaha, and we have the Pachadi Ganaha. So there, when we form this Dvandva Garbha Bahuvrihi Samasa, Dvandva Garbha Bahuvrihi Samasa means it's a Bahuvri compound, but inside the Bahuvrihi we have a Dvandva Samasa. Then what happens is that there is this Nyayaha which says that Dvandvante Shruyamanam Padam Pratyekam Abhisambhadyate. So when we take a Dvandva Samasaha and then to that we add another term, then that term connects individually to each of the terms in the Dvandva Samasa. So Dvandvante Shruyamanam Padam. In this case, it's the term Adi. This Adi attaches itself to each one of these three. It becomes Nandyadi, Grahyadi, and Pachadi. Dvandvante Shruyamanam Padam. Pratyekam Abhisambhadyate. Pratyekam samvadhyate. So this at the end of a dvandva compound, in this case nandi grahi pach, when you add a term, it's like a plus b plus c and the whole thing in brackets multiplied by d. Then you get AD plus BD plus CD, something like that mathematically. So Nandi Grahi Pach is A plus B plus C. And then to that you multiply that whole thing by Adi, becomes Nandyadi, Grahyadi, Pachadi. If you don't understand this whole thing right now, it's okay. So basically, we have to understand that this is a compound referring to three groups of terms: Nandyadi, Grahyadi, and Pachadi. And following these three affixes may be used: Liu, Nini, and Ach. Of course, the equivalent has been used here to the Yanadeshaha. It is Liu plus Nini plus Ach. This is also a Dvandva Samasaha. This is a Dvandva Samasaha. So, Liu Ninyachaha is a Dvandva Samasa, A plus B plus C. So, the affixes Liu, Nini, and Ach are prescribed. Following these three groups of terms, Nandyadi means a group beginning with Nandi, then a group beginning with Grahi, and a group beginning with Pach. So, Nandi, Grahi, Pach. Now, we know the Paribhasha Sutram, which says that Yatha Sankhyam Anudeshas Samanam. Yatha Sankhyam Anudeshas Samanam. When there is a prescription of an equal number versus an equal number. So when an equal number of affixes, in this case three affixes, are being prescribed to three sets of words, then what becomes? It becomes respectively Yatha Sankhyam. Yatha Sankhyam is as per the order. So then Yatha Sankhyam is respectively. This rule has to be applied respectively. So what it means is quite intuitive, of course. Is what this boils down to is that these Nandyadi, Nandi, etc. will take or can take or may take the affix Liu. This Grahi, etc. terms can take I should say verbal roots and take the dhatu. The Grahi, etc. verbal roots may take the affix Nini, and the Pach, etc. verbal roots may take the affix Acha. So there is a 3 by 3, just to be done respectively. So Nandi, etc. verbal roots may take the affix Liu. Then the Grahi, etc. verbal roots may take the affix Nini, and the Pach, etc. verbal roots may take the affix Acha. Now what do we mean by etc., etc.? Where are these given? They are given in the Ganapatha of Panini. Ganapatha of Panini, which we have referred to before. So Ganapatha is a listing of terms. And when Pani says Adihi, Prabhritihi, and so on and so forth, when he says etc., then we have to go to the Ganapatha. In fact, even the Dhatu Patha is like a Ganapatha, except in Dhatu Patha, they are all Dhatus only. But here what we have is that we have in the Dhatu Patha, this Nandi, Nandyadi is a Ganaha. Grahyadi is a Ganaha, and Pachadi is a Ganaha. So we will refer to that in a second. So what we have so far, the meaning of this sutram is that the affix Liu may be used after a verbal root belonging to the group headed by Nandi. The affix Ninihi may be used after a verbal root belonging to the group headed by Grahi. And the affix Ach may be used after a verbal root belonging to the group headed by Pacha. So this is the meaning of Sutram Nandi Grahi Pachadibhyo Liu Ninyachaha. It's a very important Sutram. And again, as we reminded in the beginning, also in the beginning itself, we said that these are Krit Pratyayaha. And by default 3467 they are used Kartari Krit. Okay, so let's take some examples to understand this sutram clearly. The first example we take is Nandayatiti Nandanaha. Nandayatiti Nandanaha. Actually, this Nandana, the Pratipadikam Nandana is formed over here. It's actually an adjective. It can go in all three genders. So we can have the word Nandanaha in the masculine, means Putraha, a son or descendant, one who brings joy, one who creates joy, one who is the cause of joy. We can also have, for example, the neuter, nandanam. Nandanam stands for, is a term used for the garden of Indra, that which creates joy or brings joy or causes joy. So it is an adjectival term. It can go in all three genders. It is used in the language, it is used in, for example, Raghunandanaha, Kurunandanaha, the one who brings joy to the Kurus, one who brings joy to the Sri Ramaha, one who brings joy to the Kurus, one who brings joy to the Raghus is Sri Ramaha, one who brings joy to the Kurus, Arjunaha, and so on. And Nandanam can also be the garden of Indra. So it's derived from a causative form. It's derived from a causative form of the dhatu Nanda, which is tu nadi samruddha. Before we go into the detail of derivation, let's note one peculiarity of these three groups of terms, Nandyadi, Grahyadi, and Pachadi. In the Dhatu Patha, when Dhatu Patha, Panini does not list these dhatus, but what he lists in Dhatu Patha in this particular case is the ending form, the resulting form that are derived. So here Pani says Nandanaha, Vashanaha, Madanaha, Dushanaha, Sadhanaha. Same thing here. It says Grahi, Utsahi, Uddasi, Udbhasi, Sthayi, and so on. These are all nominal forms. They are not the dhatus. And same thing here. It says Pacha, Vapa, Vada, Chala, Kopa, and so on and so forth. So now what you have to understand is that we have to back out. The grammarians have backed out the verbal roots, which is a starting point, which give these resulting forms. So this is a peculiar ganaha. These three ganas are peculiar. These three groups are peculiar because instead of giving the verbal roots, Panini has given the resulting ending forms which are derived. That's one peculiarity. The second thing we should also note is that this we already mentioned that this Nandi is a causative form from the reference dhatu to Nadi. So this ikara of Nandi is this affix nich, which you will see shortly when we derive this form Nandana. Then what about Grahi? What is the ikara in Grahi? Ikara in Grahi is actually this affix ik, which is used dhatu nirdeshe. So if you recall the Vartikam, which you have studied, ik shtipau dhatu nirdeshe, ik shtipau dhatu nirdeshe iti vaktavyam. In this Vartikam, Katyayanaha states that this affix ik as well as the affix shtip may be used by Panini to make reference to a dhatu. So when Panini says grahi, it simply means this dhatu graha. This dhatu graha is the last verbal root in the Kriyadi Ganaha. In the Kriyadi Ganaha, is graha upadane is the last verbal root there. Now, there's one small question here is that if the affix ik is added to the dhatu graha to get grahi, and it simply means this dhatu graha. So dhatu nirdeshe means to refer to this verbal root. Then why doesn't the repa of graha take samprasaranam by this sutram 6.1.16, which of course we have studied? Is that the sutram 6.1.16 also has the term grahi in there. It says grahi jya vai vyadhi vashti vichati vrishchati prichati vrijati na niticha. An anuvritti of kiti is coming down. So kiti niticha. So niti kiticha. So now why doesn't this? Because this sutram is saying that these verbal roots take samprasaranam and form by an affix which is kit or nit. Then how does Pani says grahi? Because the repa of grahi should have taken samprasaranam. Should have become grihi. Grihi. Should have become rikaraha. If Pani had done that, there would have been some confusion as to exactly what he's talking about. So he has not done that in the Sutra Patha for the Spashta Pratipatyartham. Spashta Pratipatyartham. In order to keep it very clear, the dhatu is graha and not griha or something else. So in order to not cause confusion, in order to keep it clear, Panini has not done samprasaranam by 6.1.16. In fact, the Sutram 6.1.16 itself, Panini says grahi. Here also same thing is that vispashtartham, to keep it clear that we are talking about the dhatu grah and not something else. Panini does not do samprasaranam. He does not make it grihi. He keeps it as grahi. Okay, so now what we have is that we have these three groups of verbal roots: nandyadi and the grahyadi and pachadi, and they take respectively the affixes liu, nini, and acha. So now let's go through this example. Nandayatiti nandanaha putraha athva nandanam indrasyopavanam. It's an adjectival form, can go in all three genders. In the language is used in the masculine to refer to a son or descendant. It can be used in the neuter to mean garden of Indra. And it's a causative form. It is derived from a causative form of the verbal root nanda. To nadi samriddhau. So it is one who causes joy, who creates joy in someone else. Okay, so now beginning the first order of business is to remove the it letters from the dhatu. The beginning two, the entire samudaya two, gets the it sanya by adir ni to davaha. The beginning ni to and do get the it sanya. See, all these rules for the it sanya have to be have to be learnt very well, because they are used all the time. And then, of course, upadeshe janunasika it, the ikara gets its sanya, and tasya lopaha, they are both gone, and we get nad. But this dhatu is an idit, it has ikara as an it. What does that mean? That means that you have to apply sutram 7158, which is iditonum dhatoh. Iditonum dhatoh, a dhatu which is idit, takes the numagamaha. Now, the numagamaha is a myth. It has makara as an it by halantyam, and we know that a term which has makara as it, it attaches itself after the last vowel of the term to which it is being attached. So, midachontyat paraha dictates that this agamaha num should attach itself after the last vowel of the term to which it's going. So now this there is only one vowel in the term nad, is the akara, is only one vowel, the akara here. So num attaches itself, num comes after the akaraha, after the vowel, which is the only one vowel, it's the last vowel, is the akaraha. So we get na, num, da. Na, num, da. So, and anubandha lopaha, upadesha jananasika it, halantyam tasya lopaha, and we get nanda. Now to this nand we add this affix nich by hetumaticha. Hetumaticha, which of course we have studied, is that in the sense of causation, when somebody is causing joy. And then chutu halantyam tasya lopaha. So after doing the anubandha lopaha, we get the ikaraha, and then we get the form nandi. So nandi gets dhatu sanya vasanadyanta dhatavaha, and now this nandi is the dhatu which is to be used to create the word nandana by attaching the affix liu. So nandi grihipachadibhyo liu ninyachaha. So now this nandi which got the dhatu sanya vasanadyanta dhatavaha, you take that dhatu and now add the pratyaha liu by nandi grihipachadibhyo liu ninyachaha. And in the affix liu, of course, the lakara is an it by lashakwatadite, and tasya lopaha. Lashakwatadite tasya lopaha. So that takes lopaha. That lakara as an it is only there for the intonation in the Vedas. It is farartha. So that doesn't affect us because we are not studying the intonations. So it doesn't affect our derivation. So dashakwatadite tasya lopaha, and then yuvaranakav. Remember, we just recently studied the sutram yuvaranakav, and we used that when we had the affix renewal at that time. But now we can use it to replace the u by ana, because the terms u and vu of an affix are replaced respectively by ana and aka. So when we have u, which is the pratyaha, it is replaced by ana. And we can also put here anekalshit sarvasya, and finally the ikara, the nich affix takes lopaha by 6451 niraniti. I keep repeating you, this is a very very important sutram, niraniti. I must have heard from my teacher 1,000 times, niraniti. Anidadav ardhatuke pare ne lopasyat, anidadav ardhatuke pare ne lopasyat. Whenever the affix nich is followed by pratyaha, which has a sanya of ardhadhatukam, and which doesn't have an idagamaha. Here ana does not begin with a vowel letter. There is no question of adding idagamaha to ana, because always remember, the idagamaha only, there's only a possibility. There's a possibility of idagamaha is only there if we have an affix which begins with a vowel letter. Ardhadhatukasyed valade. Never forget this valade. Pratyaya is not valadi, then it doesn't begin with a vowel letter, there is no chance of an idagamaha. So ana cannot take an idagamaha, so this affix nich takes lopaha by niraniti. Anidada vardhatuke pare ne lopasyat. So we get the form nandana. So nandana gets pratipadika sanya, krittadita samasascha, and then we can use it in all three genders, and it is used primarily in this case masculine or neuter, as we already described. So that is how we derive this form nandana. Let us take one more example of this nandyadi ganaha. Let's take this form lunatiti lavanaha atva lavanam. Similar idea. We take this dhatu lui chedane. This is not a causative form. It's derived directly from lui chedane. And so one who cuts through, one who I guess destroys, chops off. That is dhatu lui chedane. So lunati iti lavanaha. This is a character which comes in the Ramayanam. Daitya Vishesha, a particular daitya, a particular demon of that name, Lavanaha. He was killed by Shatrugna in the Ramayanam. Atva lavanam, which is salt. Rasa vishesha. It means salt. Now, why is salt called lavanam? Because salt bites through your wounds. It cuts through. It's called lunatiti lavanam. It cuts through. So that is what is called lavanam. So see, as I mentioned to you, this is a very important sutra. This Nandi Grahipachadibhyo Lyuninyachaha is a very important sutra, which is used to derive many forms in the language. That is why we are spending so much time on this sutra. So even a word like lavanam, which you may not suspect comes from this sutram, is actually this dhatu lui chedane, taking this affix liu to get the form lavanam, that which cuts through. It means salt. So the derivation is good. The good news now is that derivations are all very simple. There is nothing very complicated compared to what we have been through. The thing on the Prakaranam which we have studied, we had a lot of complicated derivations. That has prepared us very nicely. So now we have these easy derivations. So you can enjoy these easy derivations. All we do is take this dhatu luin chedane, halantyam tasya lopaha, add the affix liu. Now because in the Ganapathaha, you'll find this word lavana. So here it will be here. It will be here tapanaha, sankarandanaha, dushanaha, sadhanaha, shobhanaha, sahanaha, lavanaha, ramanaha, sankarandanaha, yavanaha, lavanaha. See, lavanaha is there. So that it is there in the patha. So that allows us to add this affix liu, because the word lavana is mentioned by Panini in the Nandyadi Ganaha, and as already we have noted that Panini is giving the final forms, not the dhatu itself. So lu plus liu, and as before, lashakvatadyate, lakarasa itsanya tasya lopaha, yuvaranakau, and we can also put anekalshit sarvasya. So you gets the ana adeshaha. Only thing here is that we get sarvadhatuka ardhadhatuka yoho guna adeshaha, because ana has sanya of ardhadhatukam by ardhadhatukam sheshaha, and we get the guna adesha becomes lo plus ana then echo yava yavaha, we get lavana. That's how we do add lavana. Now the question comes that how do we get the form lavana? Nattam. Nattvasya nimittam nastyatra. There is no nimittam to get the natvam. Nimittam for nattam is what? Ra sha bhyam no nas samana pade. And then the vartikam ruvarna natvam vachyam. So now we have these only the nimittam that we know for natvam is only the repha, the murdhanya, shakaraha, and by the vartikam ruvarna nattam vachyam. Ruvarna nasya nattam vachyam. Then we can have the rikara, but we don't have any of these right now. In the word lavana, we don't have any repha or the murdhanya shakaraha, the rikaraha. So what? How do we get this word lavana? That is why we understand now that Panini gives these ready-made, these final forms, because in that he has performed some operations that are there is no rules for them. So instead of writing more rules to perform the operations, Panini has given the final form. So these additional operations Panini has already given directly in the Ganapatha. Because in the Ganapatha we already saw that Panini gives the form Lavarna directly here. So that is one of the reasons why Panini, instead of giving the Dhatu Lui Chedane, he gives the form Lavarna. So that way, Nipatanat, Ganapathe Nipatanat Natvam. This Natvam is because Panini has done so in the Ganapatha. So even though the Nimittam for Natvam, the Repa or the Budhana Shakara or the Rikara is not there, we can see in the Ganapatha that Panini says Lavana. So that is the basis on which we replace the Nakara by Nakaraha. Ganapathe Nipatanat Natvam, because Panini has given Lavana as the form in the Ganapatha. So now we begin to understand everything which Panini does. He has subtle reasons why he does that. It always to economize this Vyakaranam. So rather than giving more and more rules, he said, let me give these forms because these peculiar operations are taking place, so I'll just give the final form. So that is Lavanam. So it's just another example of how to apply this affix liu. We have to take what Panini has given. From that we have to back out this dhatu which is coming from that. Now before we move on to the Grahyadi, let us look at the Ganapatha quickly and maybe note a couple of the forms. Like for example, we can have the form Madanaha. Madanaha is Kamadevaha, one who intoxicates. Madanaha, this Cupid intoxicates, so Madanaha. Then we have Ramanaha, Ramana Maharshihi. So Ramate, Ramayati itiva. So one who delights himself or he makes others delight is Ramanaha. So we have these forms, and there are also some compound forms given over here. Like, of course, we also have Vibhishanaha. Then we have Madhusudanaha, Janardanaha. Some of these forms we are not able to fully appreciate right now because we have not studied compounds. When we study rather than spending half an hour now to discuss these forms, let us wait till we study compounds. We'll come back, and then we know that this affix liu is being used, and when we study compounds, we can come back and fully appreciate these forms like Madhusudanaha or Janardanaha. So let us leave them for the time being. But there are a number of interesting forms here, and we'll of course see many more in the posts and the comments which we will be composing on this sutram. So that is the first part of this sutram. The sutram has three parts. So Nandyadibhyaha lihu. That's the first part we have done. Now we'll move on to the next part. Grahyadibhyaha ninihi. The verbal roots in the Grahyadiganaha, they take this affix ninihi. Nini. And here also same thing that Panini has given the ready-made forms. Ready-made forms are given in the Ganapatha, and we have to back out and get the dhatu from which they are derived. Grashnati iti grahiya, derived from verbal root grah upadane. As we just saw, this is the last verbal root the Kriyadigana Graha Upadane. So applying this sutram now, we take Graha plus Ninihi, because as we saw, we did Yatha Sankhyam, so respectively, the terms, the Nandyadi, verbal roots in Nandyadi Ganaha may take the affix Liu. In the Grihyadi Ganaha, verbal roots take the affix Nini, and Pachadis take Acha. So we have Graha, which is the first dhatu in that Grahyadi list, and Graha plus Ninihi Anubandha Lopehe Upadeshe Jano Nasika It, that's the Ikara Sit Sanya, then Chutu Nakara Sit Sanya Tasya Lopaha, then we get Grah in. Because affix Ninihi is a Nit affix, we can apply Atopadhaya. That's the reason why Panini has used this Nakara as an its operations like Atopadhaya may be done. So we get the form Grahin. This is also an adjective form, adjectival form. It can go in all three genders. If we decline it in the Pullinge, Prathama Ekvachanam, so it gets, first of all, Grahin gets the Pratipadika Sanya by Krit Tadita Samasascha. Now we if we take a Prathama Ekvachanam Pullinge, use the affix Su by 412, so just some out, etc. So the affix Su, Anubandha Lope, Upadeshe Janunasika It, Tasya Lopaha. And now what happens at this point is that we could have applied 648 Sarvanamasthane Chasam Buddhau. Sarvanamasthane Chasam Buddhau. But that is stopped by the Niyama Sutram in Han Pusharyam Nam Shau. All this we have studied when we did the Subantra Prakaranam. We're just practicing that now. So if you want to refresh your memory, look at the Sutram 6412. 6412. So here we have 6412, which is a very long time ago. 6412 says in Han Pusharyam Nam Shau. So Esham Shavevo Padhaya Dirgho Nanyatra. So Esham Shau Eva Upadhayaha Dirgha Na Anyatra. So lengthening ordained by Sarvanamasthane Chasam Buddhau, the penultimate letter of the terms ending in, which is what we have right now. We have the Pratipadikam Grahin. Han, Pushan and Aryaman should be done only. Important thing is only when the Shi Pratyaya follows and not when followed by any other Sarvanamasthana Pratyaya. So this one, Esham Shavevo Padhaya Dirgho Nanyatra. Shavevo Padhaya. Shavevo Padhaya Dirgho Nanyatra. So this stops the Sarvanamasthane Chasam Buddhau, and then we have to use the next sutram in the Ashtadhyayi, which is Saucha. Saucha Sutram 6413 Saucha. That finally helps us out to do the Upadadhirgha. See, Innadinam. Anduvritti is coming from the Paraj Sutram of In, Han, Pushan and Aryaman. So Innadinam Upadhayaha Dirghaha Asamuddhav Saupare. The penultimate letter of the terms ending in, Han, Pushan, Aryaman is lengthened when the Supratyaya, which is not Sambuddhi, follows. So this is only a declension details. So we apply 6413 Saucha and do the Upada Dirgha Desha, become Grahin. And finally Halnyabhyo Dirgha Sutisya Pruktam Hal, this Aprukta Pratyaha Supratyaha, which is now Sakaraha. After doing Anubandha Lopa, it's Sakaraha. That takes Lopaha by 6168. And here we get Grahin gets the Padasanya by Supting Antam Padam 1414 with the help of Pratyaya Lope Pratyaya Lakshanam. Pratyaya Lope Pratyaya Lakshanam. So all these are not new rules. We have done all of these when we did the Subanta Prakaranam. So Pratyaya Lope Pratyaya Lakshanam and then Supting Antam Padam by 1414, and that allows us to now apply no lope of Pratipadikāntasya. So 827. No lope of Pratipadikāntasya. Even though this Supratyaya took lopaha, it leaves a Lakshanam behind. It leaves its mark behind. So this is a Subantam So it gets the padasanya by suptingantam padam 1414, and then we can apply null for pradipadikantasya. We get the form grahi. So grahi is one who takes or accepts, is grahi. It can go in all three genders. We just give an example in pullinge. Let's take one more example of this part of the sutram. Mantrayate iti mantri. Mantrayata iti mantri. This is formed from the well-known dhatu mantra. Matri gupta paribhashane. Gupta paribhashane means to hold secret discussions, private discussions. Private discussion, paribhashane. So effectively it means somebody who counsels or advises, mantri. Now this dhatu, matri, it comes in a section of dhatu pataha, which is called the, here it is, matri gupta paribhashane. It is number 199 in the Churadiganaha. That comes in a section which we have referred to before. It's the akusmad atmane padinaha, up to the dhatu kusma. These dhatus only take atmanepada affixes. Normally what happens by nichascha, sutra nichascha, we realize that we could use atmanepadam katravipraya kriya phale, or we could use parasya padam by sheshat kriti parasya padam, because churadibhyo you're going to get the affix nich. But churadibhyo nich, any dhatu churadigana cannot be used unless and until we add the affix nich. And then nichascha normally applies, which allows us to use the atmanipadam kartrivipraya kriyaphale and then sheshat kartri parasyapadam. But for these verbal roots which are in this section of Churadiganaha, which is the akusmad, akusmiyaha, for them only atmanipadam may be used. Akusmad atmanipadinaha. One more reminder is that this is all in the active voice. In the passive voice, because of 1313 bhava karmanoho, only atmanipadam always. But in kartari we have this choice between atmanipadam parasyapadam, and the dhatu pasa tells us which one can be used. And for a nijanta dhatu, 1374 allows the use of atmanipadam kartrivipraya kriyaphale, and remaining case parasyapadam by sheshat kriti parasyapadam. But in this special section of Churadiganaha, these verbal roots, following these verbal roots, only atmanipadam may be used in kartari, and in that section comes this dhatu matri gupta paribhashane. So that's why the vigraha vakyam is given as mantrayate, not mantrayati but mantrayate. Of course there's a sandhi karyam going on here, echoyava yavaha followed by lopashakalyasya. Okay, so now matri has ikara as an it. So the ikara end of matri gets it sanya by upadeshe jano nasika it, and this dhatu is an idit. Of course the ikara takes lopaha but tasya lopaha, and that allows us to apply iditonum dhatoho. So first upadeshe jano nasika it tasya lopaha, iditonum dhatoho, then midacho antyatparaha, the numagamaha, because it's a myth, it attaches itself after the last vowel or the term to which it is attached. In matra there's only one vowel, the akaraha. So the num agamaha comes after the akaraha. We get ma num tra, and then anubandha lopaha upadesha jananaskait halantyam tasya lopaha, we get mantra, and then following that we use the affix nini affix by the sutram nandi grahi pachadibhyo lyuninyachaha. If you look at the ganapataha, there Panini has given the word mantri should be here, grahi utsa, here mantri is here, mantri, so that allows us to use this affix nini. So now we complete derivation. We can complete the derivation by simply removing the it letters of this nini pratyaha, upadesha jananasika it, chutu tasya lopaha, and we get the form mantrin. Declension of mantrin will be same as grahin. It's an adjective, can go in all three genders. When we decline it pullinge prathama ekvachanam, then we get the form mantri. Same way as we got grahi from grahin, We get the form mantri from mantrin. So these are examples of the second part of the sutram, which is grahyadibhyaha ninihi. Grahyadibhyaha ninihi. The affix nini, ni may be used after the verbal roots of following the grahyadi ganaha. And again, the same reminder is that in this ganaha, Panini gives us the final form and not the verbal roots. So these are two examples of the grahyadi ganaha. Next, the last part of the sutram is the pachadibhyaha ach. Pachadibhyo ach. That is the next thing which we have to look at, the last form of the last part of this sutram, because we have three sets, three groups followed by three affixes respectively. The last part is pachadibhyo ach. The final form, the final section of the sutram, pachadibhyo ach. Now the one question comes to mind right away is that why do we need this part of the sutram? Because we already studied this vartikam. If you recall, we already studied this vartikam which says ajvidhi sarvadhatubhyaha. The affix is a vartikam. We needed that vartikam when we were using the sutram yangochi. Yangochi, when the affix ach follows and the yang takes the look. That's how we were deriving these young look forms. So now the question comes, why bother Yango Chicha? I'm sorry, Sutram Yango Chicha. When we studied Yango Chicha, at that time we introduced this Vartikam, which is Ajvidhis Sarvadhatubhyaha. Now the question is that if that is the Vartikam, then what is the point of having the Pachadikanaha? The answer to that is that first of all, how do we know that this? How did the Vartikakaraha Katyayanaha? How did he figure out that this aj should be allowed after any dhatu? There are a couple of reasons for that. Couple of indications for that is that first of all, Panini himself uses some words in the Ashtadhyayi where he adds the affix ach, to a dhatu which is not explicitly given in the Pachadiganaha. So that dhatu is not in the Pachadiganaha. So now, for example, a quick example is the sutram which we have not studied, but in the Ashtadhyayi, the sutram 44143, where Panini uses the word kara. Now here, this word kara is formed by adding the affix ach. Now this word is not, this kara is not in the Pachadiganaha. Then how do we justify the use of kara? So that becomes an indication from Panini. That this affix ach may be used after verbal roots which are not explicitly in the Pachadiganaha. The second thing is that the Sutram Yango Chicha, which we already studied. In that also Panini says that the young affix is dropped when followed by the affix ach. So 2474 we have studied Yango Chicha. The affix young takes a look elision when followed by the affix ach. So there is no mention of this in the Pachadiganaha. The Pachadiganaha does not have any indication that following a Yanganta dhatu we can use the affix ach. So, but the fact that Panini is saying Yango Chicha means that the affix ach must be available to be used by any dhatu ending in yang. So these are the indications that Panini has given, that the affix ach may be used not only after those verbal roots which are specifically in the Pachadiganaha, but after other verbal roots also. Now here too, as the same as in the Nandyadi-ganaha and the Grahyadi-ganaha, in the Ganapatha, Panini gives the final forms, like a form like Deva, Sarpa, like that the form Panini gives. So he doesn't give the dhatus, he gives Devat. Now okay, now the question is that then why do we need a Pachadigana at all? Why don't we just say Ajvidis Sarvadhatubhyaha and forget about this Pachadi business? There is a reason for that also. See, Panini also gives some, um, also accomplishes some other operations by giving these terms the Pachadigana. For example, take the word Devat. The word Devaha is formed by Divyatiti Devaha, one who shines is Devaha. But then here Panini gives us Devat. Devat. This takara gets the issanya bahalantyam tasya lopaha. Now, when we study the Stri Pratyaya Prakaranam, when we learn how to form the feminine forms, we learn how to form the feminine forms. So far, we have looked at that only in very briefly. We have looked at the sutram Ajadyatashtab. So this we have just had a very brief introduction to the this Triyam Adhikaraha. But later on, when we study that prakaram in detail, we will study a sutram 4.1.15. This is a very long musical sutram. Tidhanai dvaya sajdagnai matrachta yap thak thai kai kvarapaha. That is the sutram of the Ashtadhyayi. It sounds like some, you know, some strange set of sounds combined over here, but this is a sutram. Tidhanai dvaya sajdagnai matrachta yap thak thai kai kvarapaha. Okay, but right now we don't have to go into that. Only one thing we say tit, tit, a pradipikam which is tit. Following that, the affix neep is used to form the feminine form. Anuvrittihi of neep is coming from here. So this sutra we'll study later on when we study this adhikara of striyam. For the time being, we can just note one thing is that a pradipadikam, which is a tit, which in there has a takara as an it somewhere there. Following that, the affix neep is to be used to get the feminine form. So this, instead of using ajadyata shtap, we have to now use the affix neep. So when we have this word devat, so following that, if you want to form the feminine, we have to use the affix neep and get the form devi, not deva but devi. So that you see that Panini does not waste the Pachadigana. He gives some other operation like this feminine affix neep, which is to be used following because this has takara as it. Same thing, he gives the form nadat, nadat. Same thing, if you want to form the feminine, you get the form nadi and not nada but nadi. So these are some operations that Panini accomplishes by listing them in the Pachadiganaha. There's one more, there could be other reasons also. One of the reasons could be like, another reason is like this. The word devaha, deva which is formed here. Now we understand ajvidhis sarvadhatubhya vartikam we have. So this affix ach could have been used after the dhatu div just based on the vartikam. But that would not have solved the issue because we are going to study a sutram very soon. The sutram which we are going to study next, is this sutram, which is the Igupadha nya pri kiraha kaha. And that is going to tell us that following a verbal root, which is a penultimate ik letter, like div. Div has a upadha ikaraha. That's of course a it letter. So following that, the affix ka is to be used, kartari. So I would have given us the wrong form. We would not get the form deva. We would have got deva also. We also would have got the form diva, divaha. That form divaha is not correct. That form is not used in the language. So in order to stop this 1.3.1.135, which you're going to study next, Igupadanya prikiraha kaha, Panini gives the form devat in the Pachadigana. So the Pachadigana is not a waste. It has a purpose. It has Panini accomplishes some other operations, and sometimes Panini stops some other operation. The fact that Panini has given devat in the Pachadigana means he's telling us don't apply the 3.1.135 Igupadanya prikiraha kaha to this to this form, to this dhatu div. So because you might wonder is why do we need pachadigana? Because already Katyayana says ajvidhi sarvadhatubhyaha. But that is true. But still Panini has a reason to put the pachadigana. To accomplish other operations, to stop other operations, all this Panini does by putting the pachadigana. So we don't get the form divaha, we get the form devaha only, and so on. Okay, now so that is the, otherwise sutram itself is very simple. I mean, this part of sutram is very simple, that the affix ach may be used after, not only after terms in the pachadiganaha, dhatus in the pachadiganaha, but also after, in general, after any dhatu, because of the vartikam ajvidis sarvadhatubhyaha, which already we have studied, ajvidis sarvadhatubhyaha. So let's take a quick example. The derivation is nothing at all. We just take the if we take this dhatu pach, so we get pachati iti pachaha, pachati iti pachaha. These are also adjectives. They will go in all three genders. And we take this dhatu dupachash pake, of course halantyam shakaras it sanya upadeshe jananasika it, this akaras it sanya, and then adir ni to davaha 135, do ityasya it sanya, then tasya lopaha. Finally we get pach plus ach, plus pach ach. Now in ach the ending chakara gets the is sanya, bhalantyam tasya lopaha. That chakara as an it is used by Panini also to get some particular intonation in the Veda. So we don't need that for us. That's only svarartha. So for us it doesn't make any difference. So halantyam tasya lopaha, we get the form pacha, pachatiti pachaha, pachatiti pachaha. So that is another quick example is chalatiti chalaha. So that which is mobile, chalatiti chalaha, that which is moving, which is mobile, which moves. Chalatiti chalaha, same thing, chala company, very straightforward example. Upadesha jananasika tasya lopaha, and then after that chal plus ach, halantyam chakarasi sanya tasya lopaha, we get the form chala. And then of course chala gets pratipadika sanya by kritya samasascha, and then we can use an adjective in all three genders. So this completes a very important sutram. Very important. So we took a long time for this sutram. This because sutram is really a combination of three parts. Nandyadibhya lyu, grahyadibhya nini, and pachadibhya acha. So we're going to get a lot of examples. This sutram is used in many places. There are a number of examples where sutram is going to be used. It's going to be a part of us for the rest of our lives, so to speak. So please pay attention to it, and we'll practice this by studying a lot of examples. So please be on the lookout now for these three affixes: lyu, nini, and ach, following these sets of verbal roots. And one more final time is that in the Ganapatha, Panini gives the final form and not the verbal roots. Please make a small correction here. When we derived the form mantrayate iti mantri, mantrayata iti mantri, at that time I forgot to add the affix nich to the form mantra, because as explained earlier, this dhatu matri belongs to the churadiganaha. Matri gupta paribhashane churadiganaha. So any dhatu of the churadiganaha, it cannot be used as it is. We have to add the affix nich. So when the numagama was added, we got the form mantra. Then after that, we directly went from mantra to nini. But in between, we have to first add the affix nich by the sutram satya papasha ityadi. That sutram is 3125, of course. Satya papasha rupa veena tula ityadi churadibhyo nich. So that step is definitely to be applied. The sutram is to be applied. We cannot bypass this one. It won't make a difference in the final form. The nich affix does take lopaha by the sutram uh, nearer niti, but that still doesn't excuse us from applying the affix nich. So what should have been done was, after we apply the numa agamaha to get mantra, you have to apply the affix nich by 3125 churadibhyo nich. Anubandha lopaha halantyam chutu tasya lopaha. Get the form mantri. Mantri gets the dhatu sanya by sanadyanta dhatavaha. Sanadyanta dhatavaha from 315 to 3132, section of Sanadyanta Dhatavaha. And this Sutram 3125, of course, is in that section. So Sanadyanta Dhatavaha goes from here up to 3132. So therefore, this dhatu, this form mantri gets dhatu sanya Sanadyanta Dhatavaha, and then we can apply the affix nini by nandigahipachadibhyo lyuninya. And anubandha lopaha upadeshe janunasika it chutu tasya lopaha, we get mantri plus in, and now we use 6451, which is niraniti. This sutram comes in the adhikara of ardhadhatuke. The pratyaya nini has the sanya of ardhadhatukam by ardhadhatukam sheshaha 34114. And Niraniti says Anidada Vardhadhatuke Pare Ne Lopasya. It's a very important sutram. Is whenever this affix ni is followed by a ardhadhatuka pratyaya which does not have the idagamaha, then this affix ni takes lopaha. Anidada Vardhadhatuke Pare Ne Lopasyat. So we remove that affix nich in this case, and we get the form mantrin, and then same mantrin gets the pratipadika sanya by krit tadita samasascha. So the final form is the same, and so no difference there, but one step was missed in the earlier recording, is that the affix nich should be added to mantra by 3125. Satyavapasha ityadi churadibhyo nich, and then that nich goes away because of niraniti, but still these two steps should be done. We cannot just bypass them like that to get the form mantrin. So please make this correction in the derivation of mantrin.